Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 832A, and today's date is December 2nd, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Economy Has Come to a Screeching Halt. The Global Collapse is Upon Us. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with James Fetzer has been uploaded to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You can go right over to YouTube, just type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the video. Or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview right there. Or you can go to newssentinel.com, and you can find the video on there. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the U.S. government central bankers, they're getting a little nervous at this point because the acceleration of this economic collapse is occurring right now, and their statistical numbers, they don't make sense anymore. So they're continually taking the information and trying to make it seem like we're in this incredible recovery. Now, we know that unemployment is at 5%, which is a complete fake, phony, and false number. And we can see from the holiday season sales, they're not that great. Actually, they are terrible at this point because if we're at full recovery, we should see incredible holiday sales for this Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But we don't see this. Actually, the sales were much better back in 2011, 2012, when unemployment was much, much higher. So something's wrong right now. But ADP is out there, and they're trying to convince everyone that everything is fine. I mean, from pumping up lots of jobs in September to slowing down in October, we see November jobs have increased. In November, beat is the biggest since 2014. Now, which is kind of strange because we've had all of these layoffs from major corporations, and the layoffs continue. And when we look at additional layoffs that are coming up, we know that Morgan Stanley is going to be laying off 25% of their staff. We see NASA, their assembly facility, is going to be laying off 200. We see Brinderson LP laying off 329. We see Pulaski County Volvo Trucks 734, Gulfstream 1100, American Car Foundry 300. And this list goes on and on. At this point, we are approaching 1 million layoffs since June of 2014. And they're trying to tell us that everything is fine. Something doesn't make sense. Mark Zandi, chief economist of Moody Analytics, said, "Job growth remains strong and steady. The current pace of job creation is twice that needed to absorb growth in the working age population. The economy is fast approaching full employment and will be there no later than next summer." And we know that this is completely fake. We know that this is what they say at the point leading up to the recession/depression/collapse. We heard it back in 2008. And we see it happening right now. They're pushing it as hard as they possibly can to make everyone believe that everything is fine, except for the 100 million people that are out of work, and except for the 1 million people that have just been laid off last year, except for those people that are being laid off constantly going into this holiday season. We see in the housing industry, the mortgage applications, they've fallen once again, week ending November 27th. Mortgage applications are down 0.2%. Refinancing applications plunged 6%. And the reason for this is because the American people just don't have the money to spend on homes right now. They don't have the savings. Even with 0% interest rates, even with bringing in subprime people, they just can't do it at this point, because when you go from a full-time job to a part-time job, it makes it very difficult. Now, the millennials, they're looking at the situation here in America, and they're saying that the American dream is really not alive right now. I mean, these people who've gone to college, they're $35,000, $40,000, $50,000 in debt. They go out to the labor force. They can't find the job in their major, making the salary they want to afford this debt. They end up taking a part-time job living at home. Then they need the adjustment on their student loan because it goes by what your income is today. And the income is very low, so your payments are very small. So they're stuck paying out this loan for many, many years. What was the purpose in going to college? I know many people who have graduated college can't find a job anywhere. Yes, they have a part-time job. Yes, they're living with their parents. Yes, they have a huge amount of debt. And young workers today, they are significantly more pessimistic about the possibility of success in America than their counterparts back in 1986. And this is according to a new Fusion 2016 Issues poll. And they're saying that the people who are saying that the American dream is completely dead rose from 12% all the way up to almost 30% right now. This tells you something. People are starting to realize something is wrong in the economy. And we can see that the U.S. government is continually piling on more and more debt. I mean, trillions of dollars. Just in November, the government added $674 billion in debt. More than $500 billion in November. So that brings the debt up to $18.827 trillion. I mean, this cannot be sustained. This is why interest rates aren't rising. This is why all this talk about raising interest rates is basically that's it, talk. If they decide to go ahead and raise the interest rates, like they did back in 2008, it will put the housing market into a death spiral. It will make the debt on the country completely unsustainable. The stock market would start to collapse. The auto loan industry would start to collapse. And the whole thing would start to fall apart. This is what happened in 2008. If we see the Fed finally say, okay, we're going to bring it up 10 basis points, 15 basis points, this is the signal they are getting ready to bring this down. Now, of course, they're not going to raise it and all of a sudden it's going to collapse. That'd be ridiculous because everyone would look at them and say, okay, you just raised the interest rates and it collapsed. What did you just do? It's your fault. No, what they're going to do is they'll raise it a little bit. We'll hear, different parts of the country hurting a little bit, but nothing too bad. They'll keep the propaganda going that we're in this recovery. And they'll say, see, we're able to raise it. Everything is fine. We didn't collapse. The next time they go ahead to do it, which they'll never get to, because they will create an event and blame it on another country or group before it happens. This way they can say, see, we were in a recovery. We were bringing up the interest rates. We were going to do it once again. And look what happened. You can't blame us. And this is what they're planning at this point. So that is a signal to everyone that when they go ahead and they do this, they're ready to bring it down themselves. Now, there could be a black swan. There could be an event that they can't control. And it will happen anyhow. But again, whatever the event is, they're going to try to turn around and blame it on another country or group. Now, Martin Armstrong is out there, and he's saying central bankers are just trapped. They have no way out of this whatsoever. Their credibility is shot. They can't raise the interest rates. And they're having troubles right now because the ECB, the Fed, they're continually creating money out of thin air. I should say currency out of thin air. Buying their own bonds. And this whole system is starting to shake and crumble apart. We're already seeing this in different countries where countries are heading into a recession/depression. Canada being one of them. We're seeing Brazil right now has plunged into an outright depression. Gross domestic product in Brazil contracted by 1.7% in the 3 months ended in September. Private consumption has now declined for 3 consecutive quarters, and we're seeing a lot of Latin American countries fall into the same thing. We're seeing Puerto Rico, they're in default. Cyprus, Greece, Italy, France, Portugal, Spain, all in trouble. Those effects are now are spreading to other countries, and they're feeling it. Germany's feeling it. The UK is feeling it. And it is spreading. They realize they are running out of time. They realize they can't keep this system afloat for much longer. And this is why we see this incredible push to get troops into Syria at this point. Now, we know the global warming conference, the climate change conference, is going on in Paris, and we understand that Obama is out there trying to make his case. There's 150 or so leaders out there trying to push this hoax. And the governments, basically right now, are pushing a complete and utter fraud to everyone in the Western world. And it's science fraud. Because when we look at the satellite data, which they're telling us that the Earth is warming, that we're in this warming trend over the last 100 years, we can see that the data has been fraudulently altered to show a warming trend where none exists. What the data really shows is cooling over the last 100 years. But because this cooling trend doesn't fit their agenda, they can't use that. This is why they had to basically manipulate the numbers. Now, it's very odd because people have a very hard time believing that they would manipulate these numbers, but they have an easy time believing that they'd manipulate unemployment, they manipulate GDP, they manipulate inflation, they would create false flags around the world. But when it comes to this, people have a problem saying they would never do this. Of course they would. This agenda right here is not to benefit the people. Yes, they're making it seem like it does, but they're pushing the idea that CO2 is a bad thing. Actually, CO2 is a gift to the planet, which creates food abundance and reforestation as CO2 levels rise. And basically what they're doing is they're trying to confuse people. And pollution and CO2, they're two separate things. And the government right now basically destroys the careers of scientists who aren't willing to perpetrate the global warming hoax. And they're pushing this right now. Now, Putin was already out there telling the world that, yeah, global warming is completely fake. Now, China, on the other hand, isn't going along with it either. Now, in the corporate media, it seems like they are, but they're really not. Barack Obama stated, the fact of the matter is that there's a reason why you have the largest gathering of world leaders probably in the world history here in Paris. Everyone else is taking climate change seriously, which, again, whatever he says is completely the opposite, where most of the people are saying, no, this is a complete hoax. Now, we know the president right now is trying to push his agenda to push a carbon tax on the people. And basically what's happening right now is that China believe that the global warming that they're trying to push, this climate change, and we know the climate is always changing, the sun controls it, the humans on this planet are a small, very, very tiny little, minuscule component of it, which really has no effect. And China right now understands that this is a complete hoax. We know this because of a devastating report released by the Global Warming Policy Foundation, written by one of the West's leading experts on the Chinese environmental economy, Patricia Adams. Adams, an economist, executive director of Toronto-based Probe International, who has been working with the Chinese environmental movement since the mid-'80s, is under absolutely no illusions about China's real position on climate change. China sees it as a brilliant opportunity to fleece the gullible Western world and basically extract as much money from them as they can. So they know what the U.S. is doing at this point. The West either knows this or strongly suspects this, that China understands what's really going on. So any agreement reached next week, which pretends otherwise, will either be a fudge, a lie, or an outright capitulation by Western negotiators, because China knows that it wants what it wants and it isn't budging on what it believes. And of course, Obama and the other Western leaders like to pretend that China's appalling air pollution, the air apocalypse afflicting major cities, which kills at least, 500,000 a year, gives it a strong incentive to reduce CO2 levels. But in fact, the opposite is true. That's because China understands, as the West pretends not to, that CO2 and pollution are very different things. So we have Russia and China who are saying, yeah, this whole thing about global warming is a complete fake. We have the satellite information, the raw data that shows the Earth is cooling at this point. And we see the central bankers pushing the idea of a carbon tax to tax the people, to make them pay for the debt that they have created. This is what it's about. It's about control. And it's about taxing the people more and more to pay down this debt. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.